Welcome to the Jess Turner Talk Show. I'm your co-host, Miss Laraine, and as parents, we believe we can handle anything and everything our children may say or do. But many have realized this isn't the case when your child reveals they're transgender. Now, transgender essentially means having the body of one gender and the brain or the mind or the spirit of the opposite gender. Today, we're continuing this conversation with Miss Yesenia Alvarez, founder of Transcend with Love, whose child over 8 years ago revealed he was transgender. Welcome back to the show, Ms. Alvarez.
Thank you. It's really good to be back.
Good to have you back as well. Now we're going to jump right in, picking up from our last conversation. Let's begin with, how does your child feel about what you're providing for parents with your organization?
When he's supportive, I reached out to him. Well, I actually spoke to him a few years back when I was starting to think about starting this organization or different ideas that I've had about helping in the transgender community. And I made sure with him that he was okay, that he gave me his permission because a lot of this is his story. The majority of this is his story. My story is more so the reaction part of it. So I needed to make sure that he was okay with it. And his only comment was, as long as you don't need me to be on, then I'm good. So he's good. I would say that he's proud.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Now, we did touch a little bit on your child's father. What's his opinion of the whole transgender lifestyle of his child?
My son's been very fortunate. His father and stepmother both are extremely supportive from the very beginning. From the very beginning, his father and I, right away, we just jumped in and said, okay, how are we going to do this? We both
Hmm.
went to support meetings. We both, try to learn as much as possible. His stepmom as well. They've been wonderful. They're not as involved as I am, but they've been supportive from day one.
Wow, I didn't know that y'all all went to classes to learn about this. That's actually good when because it actually takes, as they say, a community, a village, to raise a child. So that's very nice to hear that they went with you with this.
Yes.
Now you said that they're not that hands involved. So is he supportive of the organization that you founded?
Yes, he's supportive in general of everything. I haven't really sat down and specifically spoken to him about the organization. He knows that, or they know that I'm doing something with it. But when it comes overall to the transgender community, they're very
Hmm.
supportive.
Okay, well that's good. Now this is something that I hear all the time, the pronouns. Can you explain the pronouns associated with the transgender community?
Yes, it's interesting you bring this up because this is actually the topic of my very next podcast that will air on
What?
that airs this week.
Awesome.
But yeah, so the pronouns, they can be very confusing because we were raised from the time that we could, speak to when we speak about a female, we use she, her, hers, and when we speak about a male, we use him, his, and yeah, him and his. And
Hmm.
so, and whenever we say they, we think of like a group of people. So it can be confusing, especially in the English language. And when you're it's synonymous, right? He is in reference to a man and she is in reference to a woman. So to change that up can be very confusing. It could be very kind of disturbing in some
Hmm.
cases, especially depending on the beliefs that you have. So really what it comes down to is our typical pronouns for female and male still apply because it's still in reference to a female and it's still in reference to a
Hmm.
male. What you have to wrap your head around is that it's just because you might not see them in that way anymore doesn't necessarily mean that they don't see themselves that way. So in my case, my child was born a female. So for 17 years, I referred to her as her and she, and in my thoughts and my dreams and everything around it was female and all the pronouns for that. So when he came out as male, having to wrap my head around referring to her as he for him was very difficult. First of all, struggling with the acceptance of it. And then second, just getting used to undoing the 17-year habit, and letting go of the name that, his father and I had so diligently picked out for him or for her. So, and even to this day, right now, I have a difficult time. Um, I've gotten used to referring to him as him, but where I have trouble is when I'm speaking about the past. I always question myself, do I speak about the past and refer to them as her? Because that's what she was presenting herself then, and then in the now and in the future as him, or do so I go back and forth and I still struggle. I still struggle with that. And that's been eight, and this is 8, 9 years. And so
Wow.
it's not an easy answer. It's just one that we have to just have our, our mind or an open mind about it and really
All
sit
right.
down and have a I think the most important thing is having a communication with your child and have them explain to you why they feel or why they want to be called this pronoun. Because some of them are non-binary and they want to go by they. And what that means is that they don't identify as either female or male, that they're more in like the middle of the spectrum, or
Mhm.
like the in between. Um, and so, having a good conversation and then also maybe having them understand that it's going to take you a while. I mean, it took me a long time to really get into the mode of using he and him and his. So yeah, it's a long process.
I can only imagine. I was going to ask you about the they because I noticed that some use I'm not a, don't say him, say they. And I'm like, okay, why are we saying they? Is I'm thinking, is it a multiple personality disorder happening, or because
Yeah.
coming from a psychological background, that was my field in college. That I'm thinking is there a disorder that you're wanting me to say they when I you know address you, and so thank you for helping me to understand that they just means that they are not identifying as either or, and so they is like a common
Yes.
ground. Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Hopefully
Absolutely.
it's helping somebody else out there as well to
Yes.
understand.
Also, I
Okay.
sometimes use they when I don't know what to call somebody, right? Because it's more of an inclusive pronoun. And also, if you think about it, we've used they before in like the English language to in general terms. When we don't really
Yes.
know who's going to be there, we're going to be like, they will be there. So I have
Mm-hmm.
had to retrain my brain to think of it that way as well. And that's helped me in some
All
sense.
right. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you again for that. Now, still speaking on pronouns, does your son change his pronouns often? And I'm only asking because I watched a TV show where the young man changed his pronouns daily. Every day, his the person that he was working for, when he would walk in, they would ask, "Who are you today?" And I was
Oh,
like, "Okay, why are you asking that question?" And then one time he said, "Today I'm they." And I'm like, okay, so how would you, does your child change daily?
yeah, no, my son doesn't. Once he came
Mm.
out and he said, "Okay, I am transgender. I want you to refer to me as him, and this is my new name that I want to be called by." He never changed after that. It's always been him. And he has friends that use they, but for him, I've never met somebody that has gone through what you explained. So
Mhm.
that I can understand how that would be confusing. How that
Yes,
would
you
be
don't know who
how
you're talking to.
yeah, I can understand that. That would be even more difficult because just switching to one constant was hard. So I can only imagine how that is, how that would affect the daily communication with
Yes,
others. Yeah,
yeah.
no, we didn't have
Now
to
it
go through. We're not going through that.
well, that's good because in the movie it was his because his parents didn't know that he was going through that transition, and but his employer knew. So I
Okay.
can only imagine once his parents got on board that when he wake up, okay, so well, how do I address you today?
Yes.
Because you're constantly changing on us.
Yeah. Now,
So thank you for that.
what I do know is that there are some people, especially when they're first
Hmm.
thinking that they're transgender or non-binary. I know a lot of people that for a while before they actually come out to everybody, they start with the close friends that they have or the close people that they feel comfortable with, trying out different names and trying out different pronouns to see what they feel comfortable with. my son apparently did that. Apparently because I didn't know at the time, did that prior to me knowing. He tried out different names and he started having people refer to him as him, to see how, how he felt and if it really was what he thought it was. So that I know I am aware of that, but that's to the extent of it.
Okay. Has your family become proficient with the pronouns?
The majority have. Yes, it took a
Good.
while. It took a while.
Hmm.
My mother, it took a little bit longer, and the great thing about my son is that he understands. He has some older relatives that don't, and we've never really had the full conversation, but
Okay.
his opinion is he understands they're from a different generation. And so
Hmm.
it's not something that he feels he needs to really push on them, but he doesn't see them very often either. So, but that's an individual thing. There are, some people are okay with that. Some people are very adamant that know that everybody needs to refer to them by their pronoun. So it really depends on the person and what they're comfortable with. But for the most part, yeah, almost most of my family already refers to him by his name and by his pronouns.
Okay. And you already answered my next question. Does everyone in the family adhere to it? And you said some, that the older generation, they're not going to go along with this new style of living and call me this, call me that. They're used to, if you were born a male, you're a male. If you're born a female, you're a female. There's nothing in between because God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. That's the things that you hear from the old,
Right.
from those of the old school and those even today, that their belief is no Adam and Steve, but Adam and Eve. And so anything beyond that is an abomination and they don't want to hear about it and they're definitely not going to give in to it. And I
Yes,
can,
and we have we've experienced some of that. And
mhm,
me, coming from like being in the middle, trying to I've been on the extreme right, I've been on the extreme left. And so now I'm kind of finding myself more in the middle of it, which is why I have started now with this organization, because since I've been on both sides, I understand both sides, but I see the good and the bad in both, the pros and cons in both. So the way I've tried to handle it is when those specific people that are still, in their beliefs, feel that a man is a man, a woman is a woman. I am not here to debate anybody's religious
mhm,
views, but all I ask them is to have a conversation with my son. To have a conversation with my son. My son is 25 years old now. I no longer am a spokesperson for him. I can
mhm,
be if he needs me to, but he's old enough now to speak for himself. So I ask people to speak to him, have the talk with him as to how they're feeling, and then let him respond to them how he wants to respond to them. And whether that is that he is going to understand and accept what they're telling him, or he is going to not accept it, then that is up to him at this
mhm,
point. I'm
right,
going to be as respectful as I can to everybody,
mhm.
and let my son, handle that on his own. And whatever he decides on, I will back him.
Okay, and that's very good. And even today, even if you're from, old school, if you want to call it that, and if your beliefs are that strong, that you're not going to adhere to this new way that the world is transitioning, but we are to respect one another. That's still the Bible way. Respect one another. We're still to love one another. We are not to condemn people. We're not to judge anyone. We are to just love on everyone. The Bible tells us that love is like it's the greatest thing there is. So
Yes,
thank you for
correct. I
that.
agree with you.
With your organization, what advice would you give to a parent who has been made aware that their child is transgender?
First and foremost, just be present. Be present with your child. Show them love. Show them respect, as you just said. I believe that
Hmm.
with those two, I believe that unconditional love and respect for your child and ourselves and yourself, we can transcend everything. Because if you have unconditional love and you really fully mutual respect towards another person, and they have it back to you, regardless of who it is, but
Mm-hmm.
especially your loved ones and your child, then you can work through anything. You might don't have to agree on everything. You might not even agree that your child should be doing this, or you might still believe that it's a choice, or there's just so
Mm-hmm.
many things. But as long as that communication is built and that relationship is built on unconditional love and respect, I really do believe that all bridges can be strengthened. And
Yes.
so my first thing is be present. Show them love, show them respect, show them that they are not abandoned, that they are still your child. Because that is the biggest fear. That is the biggest fear in everyone's heart is when they're going to come out, regardless of if they're transgender or bisexual or gay or lesbian or any of the labels under the rainbow, as I call them. They're
Mm-hmm.
terrified of being kicked out of their home, of being kicked out of their family, of being rejected. So I believe that before anything else is said, is show love and support and respect in the best way that you can, and just let them know that you love them and that they are still your child. And that, but also then bring up the fact that you as a parent are going to struggle, because we're
Mm-hmm.
all going to struggle. I mean, it's just regardless of if we agree or don't, it's a struggle. And I learned, and I wish I would have been a little more open and honest up front with my son, because I think it would have helped. It would have helped his transition some, and I think it definitely would have helped me get there faster. I hid all of my emotions and fears because I didn't want him to see that burden on me. And I feel as parents, sometimes we do our kids a disservice by hiding that,
Mm-hmm.
because they need to know that it's affecting us as well. We don't need to put it as a burden on them, but they need to know that we're going to struggle, but that we're trying in the best way that we can.
Right. What support, if any, would you welcome for your organization?
Honestly, I think just if we can just share that it's out there, it's very new.
Mm-hmm.
I just started it, and so the more people that know, I really believe that everybody should know about this. Not only those that are welcoming, accepting, and understanding of the transgender community, but honestly,
Mm-hmm.
for those that aren't, I think sometimes probably more so, because right now I believe that there's not a lot of places for parents to go when they are struggling with accepting, because the transgender issue is so heightened right now and so politicized, and it's so either you're all in or you're all out, that I can see how parents would have a difficult time reaching out to anybody, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to be ostracized because maybe they don't agree, and they're still trying to figure out how to believe it or how to see it. So this is where this organization, I believe, is meant for, is for those parents that really just want to talk to someone that's not going to judge them, that's not going to sit there and impose beliefs or doctrines on them. This
Okay.
space that I'm providing is just space to walk together through all of the questions and the emotions and the figuring out how to best have a relationship with your child.
Okay. Now, I did notice that you're starting a weekly podcast called Unconditional. Tell us about it and what do you hope to relay to your audience?
Yes, I am very excited. Thank you so much for asking about this. It's something that I have been wanting to do
Okay.
for a very long time. Um, Podcast is going to be just, short. Right now it's like 10-15 minutes. I'm hoping eventually to grow it to be a little bit longer and have guests eventually. But right now it's more so introducing my story and talking about my journey, in
Mm-hmm.
hopes that that journey can relate. Other people can relate to that journey. Other people can find some of their struggles or some of their questions or emotions in what I've gone through, so that they know that they're not alone. It's more so about giving that type of emotional support,
Mm-hmm.
and some resources as well, without trying to, like I said, without trying to impose anything on anybody. This is just a
Okay.
parent going through the journey that becomes a very roller coaster of a ride when you find out that your child is transgender. And then, and it's not just finding out, it's the initial finding out, it's the initial shock, and then it's all the many little bitty steps that it takes to move forward to where now I'm almost 10 years in and I'm still struggling. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
learning. I'm still, there's so many things that it's a non-ending journey.
Okay. Thank you. Do you host events?
Not yet. Hopefully one day.
Okay.
Not yet. Right now I'm focused. Yeah, right now I'm focusing on on getting the word out on the podcast, and also because one thing of the organization is that I want to be a mentor. I want to offer
Mm-hmm.
mentorships, and with that would come, consultations. And right now I'm offering a 30-minute free consultation for anybody that feels the need to have someone help them through this through this journey, excuse me.
Okay.
And in doing so, being able to have a consultation so we could see exactly what this person is looking for, see if we can set up a plan where I can work with them, whether it's weekly, monthly, whatever, to
Mm-hmm.
help them move on with someone basically holding their hand. Or at
Okay.
least, standing side by side for them. So that is my focus right now. And eventually I hope that will get into a little bit bigger and we'll host events.
Right. Maybe even a support group, you
Yes,
know?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, this is a very personal question. If you could convince your child to return to society, to what society would say is normal, would you try?
You know, that's, I'm going to be completely vulnerable here and
Mm-hmm.
honest and
Yes.
say, I have thought about it. I mean, and even though it's been 8, 9, almost 10 years, I still think about it. I still have dreams with my child as she was before. I have dreams of him coming back and saying, you know what, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Um, so I don't know if I would try to convince him,
Mm-hmm.
um, because at that point, then I don't know if it really is something that he would want. I wouldn't want to try to convince anybody of anything. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I have told him one time, and I'm not sure how he took it. I left him a voicemail because I was a little afraid to tell him this, so I was scared. So I left him a voicemail one time, here in the last year, and basically said, "I want you to know that I love you, and that if you ever decide that you want to, detransition or whatever that looks
Mm-hmm.
like for you, that I will be just as supportive as I was when you decided to transition. And if you decide that this is what you want for the rest of your life, then I will be just as supportive as I have been." And the only reason I did that, I think, was because I was questioning myself, and I was questioning I was in a place of just questioning a lot of the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I never opened that up for him to know that regardless of what I'm doing, because I would keep doing this if that
Mm-hmm.
happened. I would still do this because there's still, that this is just my personal experience. That I didn't want him to feel that because I was doing this, that was ever out of the question anymore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that has ever crossed his mind. I really don't think so from conversations we've had. But the selfish part of me, I think, yeah, I would want that because it was so much easier.
Okay.
It was so much
Well, we
easier.
are, well, we have ran out of time. And a final thought or advice you would want to say to parents about their loved ones and watching this show today, what would you say? Something positive to them.
Have grace. Have grace on yourselves, with yourselves. Um, we are so quick to just jump into mom mode or dad mode, and right away start criticizing, what should I have done? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Just have grace with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because there is no such thing as a perfect parent. All we are is every day waking up and doing the best we can and making
Mm-hmm.
mistakes and learning from them. So have grace with yourself, have grace with your child, and be present for your child, and just unconditional love and respect for each other. That's the best advice I can give. And just
And
know that you're
thank
not
you.
alone. I'm here. I'm here if you guys want to reach out to me.
Amen. And with that, here I'm saying amen. With that, we come
Amen.
to the end. We come to the end of the show, but I want to thank Mrs. Alvarez for sharing her story with us today. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And as our producer, Jess Turner, always says, don't ponder it in your heart. Let's talk about it on the next Jess Turner Talk Show. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.